So if
That's common.
you said to Gading, so your peers, right?
Yeah.
So if you said to Gading, would you like to eat?
Pengen arep mangan opo?
Yeah.
And let's say Gading was your grandpa. How would you say that?
Badi dahar nopo?
Oh.
So
I love
polite,
it.
right?
No,
So
I feel like I'm higher than you.
So changing the register is like changing like our position with someone.
From the Columbia University Language Resource Center, this is Said and Done. I'm Chris Kaiser, and on this episode, I'm joined by two guests, both from Indonesia and both from the island of Java. Maria Dewi Rosari, known to all as Rosi, is a Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant here at Columbia in the 2024-2025 academic year. She's also an English language lecturer in Indonesia. Gading Aulia is currently a master's student at Teachers College in Adult Learning and Leadership, and is a facilitator for youth empowerment in Indonesia. In this conversation, we discuss the Javanese language, of which they are both speakers, although of different varieties. We explore in particular a notable property of the language, which is the different speech levels. These are separate registers of the language used to express politeness and mark relationships between individuals. Here's my conversation with Rosi and Gading. Rosi, Gading, thank you both so much for joining me today. I want to give a little backstory as to why I wanted to speak with you. And the reason is that you and I, or all of us together, we went for a hike a couple of months ago.
Yup.
And on this occasion, I heard you speaking a language that I knew was not Indonesian. And I wasn't sure what it was. And it sounded very, very interesting. And so I asked, and it turned out to be
Javanese.
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 Yay, Javanese pride.
And I also learned that you are speaking two different varieties of Javanese.
Yep,
And so in this conversation, I'd like to speak with both of you about Javanese, about your experiences speaking that language, and I want to put these two different varieties into conversation with each other. So let's start out maybe with Rosi. Can you talk about your linguistic biography, the languages that you spoke growing up and the relationships between these two languages and how you learned these languages?
Okay, so I was born in a small city in central Java. So Java is like one of the big islands of Indonesia. We used to have our capital city there, although right now it's no longer in Java Island. So in the central Java, there is a city called Klaten. And growing up, my parents forced me to use Javanese.
True.
Even in a very casual conversation with my parents, and also to my uncles, to my aunts, and also especially to grandparents. Like we have to use Javanese. But it's not only Javanese. So in Javanese, we have 3 registers of language. So the lowest one is like considered like the most casual one. We usually use it with our peers, like with our friends. Like we don't need to, the position is like equal. And then we have the middle register and the highest register. And the highest register is the one we usually use with older people or someone we respect, or someone, our supervisor in the office, or whoever was that older and we respect more. And that is the kind of Javanese register that my parents asked me to use even at home.
Is that unusual?
It is unusual because when my parents asked me to join, like for example, a trip with their friends, and my parents' friends heard us speaking in that very polite Javanese, they were surprised because at that time, even when I was a child, like around 20-something years ago, it was already considered rare for a kid to talk to their parents using the highest register, like the most polite Javanese form of language. But that's the kind of language that my parents wanted us, the kids, to use.
Why?
Tell them. Yeah. Tell Chris, why is that so?
Well, I never ask them like, why did you ask us to use that kind of a Javanese language, not just like the casual one. I I just remember that I never asked or never had the idea of asking my parents that kind of question. But I think because, well, my parents are kind of conservative, like want to still get close to our cultures, even though my parents come from different part of Java. My mother is actually from East Java, from Malang.
Yeah.
So actually different dialect.
Okay.
My father is from West Java, another dialect. But when they got married, like they kind of agreed to use the Javanese in the Central Java. And that's the kind of language registers of Javanese that they asked us to use. And after that, I moved, after I got married, I moved to West Java, another part of Java, and another kind of local language, which is Sundanese. But that's a completely different language. I cannot understand people speaking in Sundanese.
Right. Yeah. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had an interview with Indonesian FLTA who spoke Sundanese, and we talked about that language. So you grew up speaking Javanese in your home. What about the other languages? What about Bahasa? What about Indonesian?
I started to use Indonesian a lot when I was at school, actually. When I was with my family, or especially my parents, Indonesian was almost never used.
Wow. Okay.
And it felt like kind of awkward, to use even my own mother tongue to talk to my aunt, my grandparents, or my parents. But then, as I grew up, like right now, because I already moved from the Central Java area, the use of Javanese like kind of less and less like that. And now I start to use more Indonesian to my parents.
Wow. Interesting. And do they reply in Indonesian or do they reply in Japanese?
Yeah.
Okay. So
They
there's
start to use more Indonesian.
yeah. So there's been a kind of migration, linguistic movement.
But still, right up
Yeah.
until now, when my mother reply my text with Indonesian, it still feel like it's kind of not like you, mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So Gading, why don't
Yeah.
we talk about your linguistic biography? So what languages were spoken where you were growing up, and what use did you make of these different languages?
Right. Thank you. Anyway, this is a really great opportunity, like just to talk for the experience. I did not grow up Javanese, like also speaking Javanese. On the contrary, on Rosie's story, we use Bahasa in the house. Why? Because as family, we tend to move to lots of cities that force us to come up with one language, which is Indonesia. Because when we moved to West Java, I spoke Sundanese when I was a kid, and then when we were located in eastern part of Indonesia, we were also not talking Javanese but Timorese, so we tend to change dialect and also local language a lot. That's why and maybe my parents came up with an idea, we should talk Bahasa. That's our first language. So yeah, the first language is Bahasa, and the second is Javanese. Why? Because during my adolescence, my dad was assigned to East Java city, and that's when I getting introduced Javanese language and East Java language. So I use that to talk with my friends, because otherwise they will not receive me well, because why you speak Bahasa? We speak Javanese for friends. So that's kind of like the way I cope with that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can you talk about, maybe it'll be difficult to remember, but since you started learning it a little bit older, can you talk about the first moment where you realized there was this other language that you needed to speak, how it sounded to you and how you deciphered it and figured it out and learned how to speak it?
I thought it sounded friendly. I would say that because as I imagine, I observed my friends are talking that language. Of course, like the first time, I was like, oh, what they are talking, because it's rare also to find that parents speak Bahasa in their house. because when I visited my friend's house, they also speak
In Java.
in
Javanese.
like Javanese, but that doesn't happen in my home. That's why when I heard it, I was instantly thinking, oh, this is maybe like the friendly language that they use. So yeah, that's the impression that I got.
So our Javanese sounds friendly.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Were you able to use your knowledge of Indonesian to help you learn Javanese, or did it not help?
I would say no. Those who help me are actually my parents because they are mixed. So their parents, at least one of them, came from Java, and one of them came from outside Java. So that's also the background why we speak Bahasa in my family, because we are coming from different parts of Indonesia. So that at that moment, I don't think my Bahasa helps me, but my parents helped me because they know a little bit of Javanese.
Okay, yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about the schooling situation? Rosie, it seems like the way that you grew up, Javanese was more central, especially in your childhood.
Yes.
Did you learn Javanese in any formal capacity? Did you learn it in school? Did you learn the script? Can you talk about that element of it?
Yeah. I still remember the time when I was in elementary school. We had, I don't know what is it, muatan lokal?
Yeah.
What was that in English?
It's like a local lessons. They have that all around
additional
Indonesia.
subject. Oh
Yes.
yeah, additional school subjects, but it's more like a local culture, and Javanese was there
Okay.
Yeah.
as part of school subject that we had to learn. We learned about the language in all the registers, and also our alphabet, aksara Jawa. We had to know how to write that, and then was that and the wayang and the names of animals.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
the name of animals, as the parents and as the kids, we have different names, right?
Yeah.
And
Did
we
you
have
learn
to
that, Sue
remember
Gading?
that.
Yes, of course.
And
yes.
we have this like a dictionary of Javanese, like to tell, like this is dog, and this is the child of the dog. The name is this, like that.
Yeah.
We do have that, and we have to remember that. And those vocabulary were tested.
Yeah.
in
So they
our
also have
final
like
exam.
dog and puppy.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
also have that kind of thing in Japanese. Yeah.
Interesting. So why do you think it was so important that you need to know the adult animal name and the juvenile version of that animal?
That's also my question. Well, I don't know. Maybe just I don't know. I'm also not sure about
Yeah. Maybe I would add on that, like that's part of how the government formalize the local language and also the culture. That's now when I'm a grown up man, I can see why they're doing it, because they think that that's really good to establish like a culture. That's why they make that. And in fact, it's one of the hardest lessons that I think that I can remember, because yeah, Rosie told you we need to learn the Sanskrit, of Javanese Sanskrit as well. But thank God we learned about that. Now we can kind of read it a little
Yeah.
bit, yeah, right?
I almost forget that actually.
Yeah, but
Really
but
use
still
it
we
anymore.
kind of like have the experience of learning that.
But during school year, I still remember that I was more confident in English tests than in Javanese
Of
tests.
course, yes.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
usually got higher score in English than in Javanese.
That's strange because you
Yeah.
had such a exposure to Javanese in your home. So why do you think that was?
Because for example, in terms of the vocabulary challenge, even for one vocabulary, we have three different types. Like for eat, when I say eat to my friend, eat to my auntie, eat to my grandparents, I have to like keep switching the vocabulary, and sometimes we just slip or just forget like that. Well, in English, it's always eat, and eat.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's one of like the challenges.
So it's actually, if you say the word eat to, depending on who you're saying it to, is it a totally different word?
Totally.
Yeah.
What are the words?
Okay, for example, I said to Gading, eat like mangan. Mangan is
Mangan.
actually like a bit harsh. to
We
say,
in
right?
East Java we have
Yeah.
even the not the worst, like even the lower and lowest way
Oh,
of
yeah.
saying mangan, like eating.
Okay.
Even for friends. Yeah.
But for me, for Javanese, Central Javanese people, say mangan is still a little bit not polite.
Yeah.
But for East Java, I
East
think
Java.
So
that's common.
if you said to Gading, so your peers, right?
Yeah.
So if you said to Gading, would you like to eat?
Pengen arep mangan opo.
Yeah.
And let's say Gading was your grandpa. How would you say that?
Badi dahar nopo.
Oh.
So
I love
polite,
it.
right?
No,
So
I feel like I'm higher than you.
So changing the register is like changing like our position with someone.
So what's the feeling associated with that?
So you are higher in a higher
Power
position.
distance.
Yeah. That's,
What did you experience when she said that to you?
Yeah,
emotionally?
I feel
Well-respected.
well respected. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
and I cannot say arep mangan opo to you. It will be like my parents will be like, what do you say?
Yeah.
It's super impolite.
So if Gading were your child, how would you say, would you like to eat?
Same thing. Arep mangan opo. Same vocabulary.
Okay.
To friend, to kid.
Okay. So then you said, so that's two versions. And then what would be the third register that you were talking about?
So the dahar is actually the highest, yeah.
Yeah.
The dahar is the highest, and the middle,
The middle. There is no middle.
madhya, the madhya thing.
Yeah, I would say there is no middle term for dahar, for like eating. Mangan, dahar, and dahar.
Oh, okay.
Like the highest still dahar. The
Okay.
same.
So it's the same for
Yeah.
the middle and highest
Yeah,
register.
maybe you change the way address it, like adding like, for instance, panjenengan. It's like
You.
it's like a you, but like very noble you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gading, when you were, you grew up speaking Indonesian, which doesn't have this highly elaborated register distinction, and then you were plunged into the world of Javanese that does have these marked registers. So how did you, and you're a little older, so how did you react to that challenge? How did you learn that?
This question makes me think about my sister is always mad to me because I always try to learn to speak the higher register to somebody older, and she said, if you don't know the term for that word, just don't use Javanese. Just use bahasa Indonesia. But you know what? As a learner, I want to also try and apply it. So whenever it's funny. I told to Rosi as well. Because I'm from East Java, but whenever I go to Central Java or Jogja, that's my mind kind of like shift to I want to try to use Javanese and also the higher register of Javanese more because people there are really soft-spoken, like very reserved compared to East Java. So that's why whenever for instance, I talk with pedicab driver, I talk with the mbo or the old lady selling things in the traditional market. But that's the time when my sister was like observing me and said, but she doesn't speak high register Javanese as well. She doesn't know that. But that's the that's the harsh reality that I should in a funny way because she always said if you cannot speak Javanese in a Krama Inggil, the highest register, just don't say it, just speak Bahasa.
Well, it sounds like she's sort of projecting because she can't speak it, so
Yes,
she's saying you
she
shouldn't.
is.
It's just like when Indonesians try to speak in English. If you cannot speak English, well, just forget English. Like
Maybe, yeah.
that reminds me of that. Like the comment from people when we Indonesians trying to practice English more. Like some people just say, you don't know English, just do not use English.
Yeah, that's true.
So it sounds like there's a little degree of policing of Javanese. Like, so if people are aware that somebody doesn't speak it perfectly, they might say use a different language or a different register.
I think because they are afraid that we are not aware of using the impolite ones.
Yeah.
So it's more like don't risk being impolite.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's funny, like one of my friend, he's not from Javanese, but he knows a couple of things Javanese. For instance, for the word eat, Rosi said mangan. In East Java, we have like even the lower and the lowest, it's pronounced nguntal and badok.
Oh my God!
Wow, yeah. Even
no, do not even think to use that in Central Java.
yeah, but in East Java, they can say that that's for like a bro.
Yeah.
So you can say that. Oh, Chris, wes nguntal apa urung eh? This wes badok apa urung. So it's like we are very close, like a bro in a way. But whenever he says that, everybody will react like
Oh my God.
Rosi.
Yeah, I see Rosie
did.
cringing on the other side of the table.
No.
Yeah, but somehow East Java.
Even though between friends, like skip that word.
I don't know. Maybe that's the way we want to show our close
Closeness?
kinship. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is, I think, a good segue to a topic that I really wanted to discuss, which is Javanese is not one single language. It has different varieties, and these varieties are, as I understand, somewhat mutually intelligible, but not totally. But they sort of have different ways of saying things, as you just illustrated, Gading. So what variety do each of you speak? And let me start with Rosie here.
Okay, maybe we can track a little bit of the history. Although I don't know much
Sure.
about this.
Well, please.
Go for it.
Floor is yours.
So I'm taking a risk of explaining this.
Yes.
Okay, so there used to be like one kingdom, we call it Mataram, right? But because of this history and the political thing in the past by the Dutch, then we are separated into two kingdoms, the Yogyakarta and Surakarta, right? So the Javanese areas that are still close to the Central Java, like Madiun, what else? Bojonegoro.
Ponorogo.
What is below Bojonegoro?
Magetan, Ponorogo,
Ngawi, no?
Ngawi. Yeah.
So those three areas are really neighbors to the areas that belong to Central Java, and those areas of East Java still use similar Javanese dialects like what I usually use.
Yeah.
But then if the areas of the East Java are close to the harbor, we can tell the difference, right? Like the Surabaya and what is
Yeah.
the one that is closer to the harbor?
Gresik, Pasuruan, Tuban.
Yeah, so those areas, we can tell from the way they speak and also the choice of words, and they sound more harsh, even though they don't mean to be harsh. They still mean to be polite.
So from your point of view, they sound harsh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, they don't mean to sound like that.
Okay.
It's just for us, it sound like different, and then that also influence our vocabulary. So even though they was at the Madiun and the neighboring cities that are close to Central Java, they speak actually Javanese in East Java dialect, but they are similar to the one spoken in Central Java. But in the way the name of the registers and the different registers remain the same, right? Remain the same thing.
So there's really a historical reason for the different varieties of Javanese, and that has to do with political organization of the island.
And also the Central Java. So we talk about this also because we were also both curious about this.
Yeah.
Like why people in the Javanese area in the Central Java sound more polite,
posh.
soft-spoken, like that. Because we still have the kingdoms. One kingdom is in Yogyakarta. That's very close to my hometown, which is actually in Central Java. And the other one is in Surakarta, which is in Central Java. And the presence of those kingdoms really influence or preserve the way the linguistic of the Javanese and all the politeness are used around that. And the area of the East Java, they are close to harbor. They are so far away from the kingdom, and no longer there is no kingdom around there. So our hypothesis, our guess is that because they are far from the kingdom, so their Javanese sound different from how we use it. Because in the kingdom, the way the Javanese is used, including the highest registers, is very well preserved.
So there's like an actual king with
Yes,
a palace.
yes,
And
yes.
So in
Okay.
in West Java we have a governor,
Uh-huh.
but in Yogyakarta, which is actually another province, there is so the king is also the governor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 And this ruling family, I guess, has existed for a long time.
Yeah.
It's
True.
like a family based
Yes.
bloodline.
We can talk more on, there's like historical like political things happens with during the Dutch era, and why they kind of like make also the king the kingdom, but yeah, if you go to Central Java and Jogja, you will find at least two most popular kings, Sultan and Mangkunegara. So those two are the one who ruled the area, and they also still do the rituals. Like there is always every once in a year doing something
Plenty of ceremonies.
like the ceremony.
And in those ceremonies, the type of Javanese use is way different. It's just like when English, we have formal English, we have like different sets of vocabularies. But when it comes to English for like writing poetry or literature, like there is this level of
very
vocabulary
poetic,
that,
yes.
Yeah.
that people rarely use.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is true with
Yeah.
Javanese, that these royal ceremonies have
Yeah.
a version of Javanese
Yes,
that's
Yeah.
like
correct.
super formal and poetic. So I want to go back to the time when we were having that hike and I overheard you speaking Javanese with one another. So you've got somebody who's speaking the Eastern variety of Javanese and someone who's speaking the Central variety of Javanese in general terms. So how does that conversation play out? Do you adapt? Do you change? Or do you just speak your version and you speak your version? What's that interaction like?
So, so actually, we had a small WhatsApp group that consists of Gading, me, and one more person. He is Anggi
Yeah.
from
Surabaya.
Surabaya.
East Java.
East Java. And we kind of make not agreement though, like we agree to speak each other in Javanese, although we have different dialects. So in the beginning, when we got along together and we know that we can just speak Javanese, I kind of find some words not understood well. For example, mari ngene. And I remember I asked them like multiple times because I kept on forgetting mari. What is mari? Mari in Indonesian is like let's. Mari makan, let's eat, like that. But for them, mari is after. And mari in my Javanese is recovered from sick.
Oh, okay. Very different.
It was very confusing the first time we got along together, and I remember that I kept forgetting, so I kept asking them like many times, like what is mari? Oh yeah, and then ngene, mari ngene is after this, but mari ngene for me means like this, but for them is this, and they use that a lot, like mari ngene, because when we made an appointment. Can you do this at this time? Mari ngene. I will what? Wait. What is mari ngene? And that's was that the interesting conversation.
Yeah.
That we needed to clarify to each other. But what
Yes.
are the words that you need to clarify from me? Because you never ask me questions about the meaning of any Javanese word.
Because we're the majority. I was about to say, because Anggi's from East Java and me also from East Java, I kind of feel Rosi is the one who should follow, the vibe.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and that's what I feel also. And you know what? Rosi also has the character of East Java people as well. Like
yeah.
you're very independent. You're very straightforward.
Yeah.
Compared to
Yeah.
where you were from.
Yeah.
So we were like, maybe in our subconscious mind we were like, okay, Rosie is anyway. You should speak East Java
So
vibe.
Javanese
Yeah.
people like Central Java and Yogyakarta people are known to be like someone who is soft,
reserved, and they keep what
silent,
they want to
quiet, but me
speak.
not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even some of my Indonesian friends here at Columbia, they guess me to be someone from Batak area because from the way I speak, like from my intonations, my tone of voice, like you're not Javanese, but I
Yeah.
am like 100% Javanese.
Well, fun fact, there is always swearing words in every kind of language, right? And
Yeah.
swearing words in East Java, that's the most like a legit swearing word. So I think this is being used by many people. So whenever they want to like swear with very powerful way, they can borrow something from East Java. And that's also what I observe from Rosie as well. Whenever she's like stressed,
I start use that.
yeah, stress or something, use that because that will express, because we are more expressive in a way.
Because you guys, when you guys start to be annoying, then that swear words come into play.
yeah, and we're again, East Java is like maybe more expressive compared to Central Java. That's why. But again, that's what I feel, because there are two of us from East Java, and you're the only one. So we kind of like the one who drag you to use our way of.
But like
speaking.
90-something%,
Yeah.
like without the confirmations of the different vocabulary, we understand each other very well.
Another, I guess, final question that I have is the script. Is this WhatsApp conversation using Roman letters? What is it using Javanese letters? What script is it in? How is it written?
This is a Roman alphabet.
Yeah,
right?
just Roman.
The way
Okay.
We use it
Yeah.
for Indonesian, for English. Like we have exactly the same alphabets. Yeah, the
Okay.
same number, the same order.
So I know you talked about learning to write the Javanese script. You would not do this in
Yeah.
a text conversation.
Yeah, I kind of like already gave up using it like long time ago.
Because there is no context of
Well, we
learning
need
that,
it.
I would say. Rosie in the very beginning said that she was more like excelled in learning English because people teach us why we need to learn English, like what's the context of that in the future. But for Javanese, it feels like they only push to do that, but no such context in terms of like you can use that for career, for instance, or you can use that for doing a excel in social life, something like that. So people start not to use that, and also people start not also speaking Japanese. That's why that's why us three also like to speak in Japanese because it makes us here, in especially in the United States of America, we feel like it's home. We feel like we can be ourselves. And sometimes we found out that other Indonesians are speaking like the slang language of Indonesians, mostly spoken by people from Jakarta, for instance. But we don't want to be like Jakarta people. We don't want to be like those comes with stereotypes. But we want to be like Javanese. That's why we also like trying to speak Javanese, right? Yeah.
And also, especially because we are here, like homesick is like kind of our like daily friend, right? And we can speak in Indonesians, yes, but when we switch to Javanese, it's like we are with our friend from our hometown. All the different dialect, but still bring the same vibe.
Yeah. Whenever we speak English, we want at least ourselves, to know that we can play part like globally. We can understand. We know that we can understand people from many different parts of the world, because English is one of the most spoken language, right? But we are also proud of speaking Javanese, especially East Java, with all of the, straightforwardness, because we also want people to know that we are rooted in our culture. Because in Indonesia, there's this post-colonialism thing. When we speak English, people tend to think that we are higher. People might feel that they are smarter. People really feel that way. But we also want to, hey, anyway, we can also. Aku bisa ngomong Jawa. apa iso apa ya?
I can speak Javanese.
Yeah, I can also speak Javanese to let you know that I'm also rooted in my culture. And when we speak Bahasa, it's like more the feeling is like more talking about like formal or educational kind of thing. But yeah, the monologue in our head, at least in my head, is that I'm part of the global community, but also I'm rooted in my culture because I can speak one of the local language, which is Javanese.
So you have one foot in this global perspective
Yeah.
and one foot in the local language.
Yes, because speaking and understanding the language, also carrying the culture behind it, right?
Yeah.
There is a politeness, there is a respecting the elders, there is a feeling equity like commoners. That's why we speak the lower register as well. So yeah, speaking the language, I'm also carrying the culture. That's what I want to. Actually, that's what we want to be identified with as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, Rosi, Gading, thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciated it.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.